Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today. This is the farm system program. This program intends to respond to farmers' demands with a systemic approach, scientific rigor, and working with two hats, learning by doing and protagonism. We are going to talk about the Bandera farm, one of the 20 farm projects and testing networks throughout the country. They are going to open a space for exchange, so all the questions are welcome to keep on learning together. Germán Esponda, an agricultural engineer, founder of the Flag Farm, responsible for production with SMR. Stefani Kern, technical responsible person for the Flag Farm project with 16 years into research. Ignacio Luna, agricultural engineer. He is part of INTA Quimilí. And so we will give the floor to the speakers.
Bueno, buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to tell you about what the Flag Farm is doing. It's the fourth cycle in place. It's 14 years old. It started with a share with problem among farmers and advisors from the area, where we first started with an analysis and identification of species, their technology, emergence flows. It's clear that you cannot have a check on what you don't know. Then we focused on their management, looking at different control approaches, mechanical, crop, chemical. In the chemical control, we have learned to position the different residual chemicals according to emergence flows and the different climate areas and in each campaign, and the use of active ingredients for emergence control. As to mechanical labor, even when all farmers have the non-till system, farm labor is looked into through different tools because they are specific with management scenarios that require rescue, and so no one is exempted from their use. And the crop control, which we call the integration of them all, the service crops or cover crops appeared at a time where we started having high irrigation systems where the table water raised a bit. We started using this type of crop to use water, and beyond that, they competed with weeds for resources, and there they took a major role. Our production systems today are quite relevant as to the implementation of these service crops, pure or integrated with others. The farm is reviewing the service crop systems, looking at the data of planting, drying, associated service crops and pure service crops, their nutrition, and the impact of the successor crop, the yield crops, the cash crops. We're tested every campaign, and so the farm is trying to look for tools adapted to each system, and then the farmer will adopt the practices that are best to their farm. So let's hope this type of group continues to grow, where exchange among members is fruitful, added to the expert table contributed by Aapresid, where we always get good information which we deeply use in this type of groups. Thank you very much and have a happy day, all of you agricultural engineers. Steffi, you can take the floor. Morning, how are you? What Germán has said in images, the story of the farm, and today we're asking ourselves where we are with the lack of rainfall in the last few years and with the reduced competition from corn. Borreria is a concern. We can see the problem reflected in the area map, and we can see all the species we can find. In the farm, we're dealing with Borreria spinosa. And I will now show you some of the characteristics that make it hard to manage. In the first place, with this INTA Quimilí paper, let me share how aggressive it is in the use of water. In our area, Santiago del Estero flag, every millimeter counts. So two bands are there, one with chemical fallow free of wood and another one with Borreria. So we measured the amount of water accumulated as time went by, and we see a difference between accumulated water, that's the gray line, and the fallow band, which is the black line. That difference is translated into 27% loss of water. It is very, very aggressive to have Borreria in the field, in the plot. The way of dissemination is also something complex. Seeds sprout, as we can see, and then we have the resprout from the Salopodia, which are the reserve organs of this weed that you can see on the right-hand side. With this official presentation of the introduction of Borreria, I will tell you when the resprouts appear for different field scenarios. For us to know the time where these resprouts appear, we do chemical management first. On the second portion of the presentation, Ignacio will share which chemical strategies are working or not as tested in the last few years. The first question we asked ourselves was, what is the contribution of the intensification to Borreria suppression? Together with La Paloma farm, we quantified the number of resprouts in two sites, Gancedo and Badera. So we measure the sprouts, we measure them, as I said, regularly. Then we use paraquat to kill them in 3 bands. Fallow was one with an implanted wheat, the other one, and the other one was Becha villosa or vetch. We found more resprouts in fallow that can be reflected in pink. The difference between fallow and the intensified area was significant till November. But what the resprouting of Borreria was in each case. In fallow, it was faster than the intensified approach. You can see that in 3 months between August and October, we got to 50% of the resprouts. However, in the intensified approach, we reached 50% in 4 months between August and November. It took an extra month in creating the same 50% than in fallow. We saw that the intensification does create suppressed resprouts. Is it the same what I intensified with if I do wheat or if I do vetch? Before answering this, let me highlight that these results were obtained in veg from 600 to 1400 of dry matter and wheat between 2500 to 4500 of dry matter per hectare. We do not need veg of 3000 kilograms per hectare. So we included all the data in a combined model comparing the effect of the treatment and the assessment dates. In August and September, there was no difference in suppression of veg and wheat. If we look at the graph, we can see in green and light blue. In October and November, wheat suppression was less than in veg. What happened? With suppression, wheat seemed more what I saw in fallow, with a high number of resprouting. This shows that veg was a better suppressor than wheat. And why is that? Part of the explanation is that in October, wheat was already senescent. In Gancedo, it dried by mid-September, and in Bandera, it was harvested at the end of October. What we should see on screen is a senescent wheat with lost competency, and we can see that Borreria starts sprouting. Veg, however, dried in October. The good suppression by Vicia could be associated to the total cover created when there is a good implantation. If otherwise, we can see there are spaces where there was no veg and Borreria is resprouting in those spaces. A curious data item, those two pictures are of the same band. And look at the good implantation of Vicia. That would support sufficient biomass with total suppression of Borreria resprouts. This is a 2023 paper where we measure the growth of Borreria through its biomass in a fallow and in a wheat band. In fallow, it reached 126 kilograms per hectare of dry matter, and in wheat, even when we find resprouts, the amount of biomass of Borreria was much less, 8 kilograms per hectare. Clearly, the competency of the crop takes away growth capacity of the wheat, so it would reduce the possibility of creating reserves and so resprouting. Another highlight in competency is something that we have not measured. We started working together with FAUBA. We see in the field that in fallow, resprouts start with temperature is between 20 and 25 degrees C, even when with lack of rainfall. So we can say that resprouting depends more on temperature than on rainfall. Translated into lower soil temperature created by the plot being occupied by winter crop fallow would have delayed 1 month Borreria resprouts vis-a-vis the fallow scenario. To wrap up this first stage, let's recap and answer the initial questions. When do we have resprouts? Between August and September, there were different sizes according to the plot scenario. August to October, 50% in fallow resprouts. August to November, 1 month more, we reach 50% in the intensified scenario. Intensifying reduces resprout and concentrates them in a shorter period of time. So intensification reduces the amount and total growth of resprouts, and veg did better than wheat. However, it was proven in the 2023 paper I showed that even when there are resprouts in wheat, they don't grow the same as if we're talking about fallow. So now let's move on to the chemical management study put together in these instances. We got together with the specialists and the farm representatives and decided which strategies to use. The purpose of these tests is to detect the chemical strategies that provide a better control, thinking of combining intensification, which we strongly believe is the path to Borreria management. We work in micro parcels with carbon gas backpacks. The chemical strategies we will tell you about soon, we use them the same in the three scenarios where we measure flow. In fallow, October the 25th, in wheat and veg, November the 12th, 20 days later. And why is that? If we go back a bit, remember that 50% was reached 1 month later, and that is the indicator that we use to get homogeneous with amounts and start our testing. Very quickly. 8 treatments. In the first place, imazapyr plus pastar, then glypho with nicosulfuron, flumi with glufosinate and paraquat, glufosinate with atrazine and prometrine, glypho with picloram, and glypho with epirephenacil and para. 3 days later, we did a dual hit with 3 liters of paraquat. So the actual treatment is comprised with the initial application plus the dual hit. So I would have treatment number 4, flumio plus paraquat, and the dual hit. When we go to the plot and assess the percentage of control is of the whole thing applied as of that date. In an integrated review of the 3 plots, of the 3 preceding scenarios, we saw that independently from the preceding scenario, there are 4 treatments that had a percentage of control equal to or higher than 80%. If we go to the initial list, it would be imazapyr and pastar, glypho with nico, flumi with paraquat, and glypho with picloram with a dual hit, meaning altogether, assessed altogether. This year we're going to validate. It's not the precise recipe. As I said, we strongly believe that the best strategy is combining intensification and chemical management. But in our area, we cannot do intensification every year. And if we go back to the most commonplace scenario, fallow, we applied on October the 25th. 30 days later, it's November the 25th. How can I go and start my seeding in December? That was 30 days later. These treatments don't allow go to summer crops with clean plots. So we designed in successive trips to the field a burning sequence of burning scenario. Then flumi plus paraquat plus second hit. We did a second application, all of them the same, with paraquat, and then we saw everything resprouted and decided to go with boraxol and glypho, a 3rd application. Then already in the crop we had a 4th application with 2,4-glypho and a hit with glufosinate to try and rescue the plot. And now we will quickly break it down. In the first application, 2,4-D plus paraquat. That's why we did the 3rd application. We went to the plot and it was halfway burned 1 week after the application. We had to seed in that plot. So what do? We did the application with boraxol. 1 week later, the plot was burned by 80%. It was great. Photographically, this was the case. We did our sowing, soybean was born, and Borreria as well. This is translated into the yellow bar that the control percentage goes down. Last strategy before closing the furrow, we did our fourth application with 2,4-D and glyphosate. We didn't reach 80% 1 week later, but 14, 15, 20 days later, Borreria was completely sprouting in between furrows. After all this battery of applications and products and thinking so much, we asked ourselves, what do we rescue from all this? In general terms of the three burning agent applications, but also with glypho were most effective. The third one was rescue, but out of the first two that we thought we would go to seeding, only the second one was there for us. Successive application of burning agents helped suppressing Borreria for 1 week. We applied, it was burned, resprouted. We applied, it was burned, it resprouted, with figures between 50 and 80%, as we said before. But what happens, and it needs to be highlighted, it was 4 consecutive applications and a very high toxicological risk. This year, as I said at the beginning, the strategies we identified that worked or did better are the ones that will be validated. This is what I wanted to tell you. I will give the floor to Nacho, who will talk about hormonal products, drying products, and residual products as well. If you agree, Q&A will be after Ignacio's presentation. A QR will appear now and then where you can send your questions. If you don't feel like writing, we can take a microphone to you and you ask them at the time for Q&A. Thank you for the invitation again. Happy day to all our colleagues. If you're coming to Borreria, is the with. If it were raining, we would not have such a full room. I'm going to tell you about the experience we have in the use of residual, hormonal, and burning herbicides in this last 7 or 8 years on rhizome resprouting. Let's start with residual and their impact on resprouting on rhizomes. These structures are the ones you are looking at. Reserve in old plants is very important. You can see the reserve that you have there in some plants. And so there is a high resprouting rate at the time of fallow status. This is one of the experiences we held a number of years ago on that plot condition with a high pressure of Borreria. We reset the site all with paraquat, and on that condition without green cover, we applied a number of treatments. Ligate, Arsenal, Forestal, 100, 120 grams. We tried sulfentrazone because some colleagues said that at a high dose there could be some suppression of resprouting, and so we included it. Dynamic, which is amecarbazone, finesse, 20 grams. A few days later, there was rainfall, and so the active ingredients were incorporated, and then we followed the evolution of the resprouting in the plots. So we saw that there were some active ingredients such as finesse, ligate, and mazapir that had a differential behavior. They stood out from the rest. Finesse and ligate 45 days after, with suppression levels in the neighborhood of 80–90%. And so 60 days, as I said, it was noticeable and marked.
En fotos, fíjense las parcelas testigo, los 40.
At 45 days, suppression of rhizome resprouting. There were some regrowths, but they were significantly lower. And the same for the second plot, and for you to see how the rest was doing as to regrowth or resprouting, the sulfentrazone plot on the right. The conditions were very, very good. Every 7-10 days we had good millimeters with rain. A more recent experience for the last season with the plot La Paloma, 200 cubic centimeters with the Maza, and then sulfur with 100, and chlorosulfuron 20 and 30. At 6 days, we had rain, so it was incorporated, and then afterwards, we counted resprouting per square meter over time. On the right, you see the graph or the diagram showing how treatments were grouped for residual herbicide compared with checks. And there's a significant difference at 40 and 50 days, the number of resprouts vis-a-vis the check. Significant contribution under certain conditions. In connection with doses and treatments, we saw no difference. Only difference was with the check. Something that I wanted to comment is the level of phytotoxicity seen in some resprouting with these products. It's usually plants that may suffer from chlorosis or be stunted, but not in all plots. This phyto is clearer in arsenal, where the weed is delayed. As to emergence, up to 60 days with the treatment, so a major decrease in the number of plantules with the 3 of the applications vis-a-vis the check. Imazapyr has a little bit more plants, finesse and ligate less or fewer. What would happen in low rain fall years? Nothing. But for potatoes everywhere, if it doesn't rain and the weeds do not proliferate, it makes no sense to use it. If you have no weeds, you don't need them. As to hormonal herbicides, there's classic active products and doses. Fluroxypyr, 400 or 800, 1,200 liters. Picloran, you see the figures there. In general, what we see is that 25 days after application, always mixed with glyphosate, it may be a little bit more, but generally speaking, controls are not that shocking, but it doesn't really stop the production of biomass in an effective way. Growing doses of the hormonal 4D in this case, and we measured biomass initially and then 25 days off. So 770 grams equivalent of acid are equivalent to 1 liter of 2,4-D in butyric formulation. So up to 5 liters of commercial formulation. And still, it did not substantially decrease the production of biomass. A different topic with another hormonal, aminopyrrolide. It has a very interesting activity on weeds. Aminopyrrolide is mixed with tricloran and micropyrid That's what is called pasture gold. Not used for intensive crops, rather for pastures. But colleagues from the area have tested for some years now, also in cash crops, the activity on weeds. We've been studying it for some years, as I said now, the ones that you see at the bottom. And we carried these protocols, dose response protocols. In summary, after 1 liter, the efficacy is interesting, I would say, to control the cash crop plots. This is 1.5 liters, 45 days after, in connection with the check. This is another check. But with higher doses even, at 60 days, we see that some plants, the older ones in particular, resprout again. And we have also seeds growing. So it's not an absolute solution, a total solution, because the plants regrow again. But it does give us a period of time where, we get results compared with other alternatives. Now, when conditions change, as we have seen in some of the tests in the last few years, not even with the highest doses did we get control above 60%. The wheat has to be active. We need rainfall, because otherwise the product will not be transferred. This is 2 liters at 45 days. Phytotoxicity, yes, but not the check condition, the control condition we wanted and we saw in the previous slides. This is the last slide, and then we will move on to the Q&A. I tried to summarize our experience with the use of burning agents in the last 5 to 7 years. 3 categories of product based on efficacy, consistency of the checkups in the different testings, and the time to regrowth or resprouting. In the lower group, carfentrazone, pyriflufen-ethyl, and fomesafen, no controls. At the other end were flumioxazine or triflumoxazine plus sulfophenacil. We see more consistent control in the different tests, with an efficacy level between 80 and 90%. Normally, depending on conditions, we may have that level of controls up to 20 days of application. In the intermediate group, paraquat, glufosinate of ammonia, and saflu and epirephenacil, we have interesting control levels, but not as consistent, more erratic. In some experiences, in some tests, the results were very good, but in other tests, not so good. So variable consistency, depending on several things. I won't dwell on this. This is simply a summary for the category. What we did test in the last few seasons is burning agent combinations, paraquat plus glufosinate plus epi, and what we have seen is more consistency of the treatment, much greater, in particular when working with weeds that are oversized and covering major areas. To close, I call it quits, and now your questions. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Steffi and Fernand. for questions. We have some already here. Is there ammonium glufosinate plus pyro? Is there a test on that? Yes, there is a test with that mixture. Glufosinate, ammonia alone, plus fluroxypyr. It's been published. There is a publication that you can go look for. It's feasible to come to control levels of 80-90% at 14 days. Yes, that's possible, but afterwards you see resprouting. So the control levels decrease after 14 days. There is a contribution by fluroxypyr versus glufosinate alone. It improves the efficacy, but it's the same regrowth period. Another question, not just for Borreria, but in general. In treatments, have you used coadjuvant oils to better plant penetration? Because we see many problems because of the lack of use or the poor use. So can you clarify? Well, in fact, in our area, we use very little water for treatments, and the water is bad. So our manual includes this kind of coadjuvants and correctors, and everything adds up for this kind of control. What time of the year do you use arsenal, and how to manage rotation, crop rotation, when you include this active principle? Normally, we apply it in August, September, October, even October, and for soybean, of course. Treatments are not just for Borreria. Imazepine also is very active on other weeds that are part of the Epipophorum floris, Aleppo grass. Basically, we aim to those weeds. We aim at them and apart from Borreria. The person who asked this question, we want to know if the person has experience on this. Treatments at the end of summer when the plant translocates to rhizoma. That's a pending topic. We're only just getting started on testing because we see that is a key moment where emergence or birth over autumn, over fall, after harvesting soybean, and we're waiting for the cold weather, but it never comes, for freezing, then the plant may become perennial, and perennial because the treatment came too late, before frost. But I was asking the person who was asking the question if he had any experience, not you. Is the person present in the room? And the person needs to use a microphone in any case. In case you couldn't hear, is about the period of pasture gold absence in soybean, for example. There's no recordation of its use in intensive crops, number one. This is only experimental, but I could comment regarding consultant experience. 3-4 years we've been consulting to study this active product agent. And experience is up to 1.5 liters 30 days before, a liter and a half 30 days before, for corn, not soybean, and with no problem. But the next year with soybean, no problems either in the implantation, in the settling. But we have no specific tests on phytotoxicity because we are now trying to define the efficacy of this active agent. It's a case study only. And the first part of the question, the use of fertilizers, leaf fertilizers. Yes, we have experience, some colleagues who have done this, but not us directly. Not very successful. We've tried different plant regulators, phytoregulators, alone or combined with other herbicides. No success either. We need to close the session. There are several questions that have gone unanswered. But as Ignacio was saying, we are trying to find out how to work on specific weeds. Some products maybe have been used in dates where the site is not right, the province is not right, so we need to learn more about how to use them. Thank you very much for the exchange and for being here. If you have doubts, you can use these QR and telephone numbers to contact the speakers. Thank you very much.